We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong, looking out for hurting children all around, and helping good parents carry on. Standing united, we'll overcome. We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness.
Hello and good evening. Welcome to Family Fest 2025. I am your moderator, Dr. Renee Boyce, and I am excited to be with you this evening. We have a wealth of information that we want to share with you. So, on behalf of Family Fest, welcome. Family Fest, bringing health, hope, healing, and happiness to families. And that's our aim here tonight. Our topic for discussion is the critical need for emotional support in family life. If you weren't able to join us on Tuesday just passed, we were discussing the role of conflict in families and how conflict impacted family relationships, especially the children in those families. And as we were leaving that discussion, we broached on the topic of emotional intelligence. And I'm sure that's something that's going to feature widely in our discussion tonight. So, welcome once again. And on our panel, we have this evening Mr. Tony Olton, we have Gabrielle Bavel and Juliana Daniel. And in a little bit, you'll hear more about each of them. But just let me give you a little bit more about why we've decided to discuss this topic this evening. So, that intricate tapestry of familial relationships, emotional support, holds an instrumental role in fostering a nurturing and a stable environment. And we know that we need stable environments in our families. However, the absence or inadequacy of emotional support within families can lead to a range of psychological and social challenges. This panel discussion aims to delve into the factors contributing to the lack of emotional support, what those repercussions are, and of course, we're not going to tell you what the problems are or the problems that we observe and leave you hanging. We are going to give you strategies to address this critical issue. So, we're going to let each of the panelists tell you a little bit more about themselves. And we're going to start, should I say, with the thorn among the roses. Mr. Tony Olton, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
Thought that was going to be Juliana. Tony Olton, someone who is deeply committed to enabling individuals, persons to live their best lives, to come into a deep sense of self-understanding, the ability to effectively engage and manage their relationships with others, and to make a contribution to the families, the communities, and our society.
Okay, thank you and welcome.
That's in a little nutshell.
Thank you. Welcome.
Sure.
Juliana, you want to go next?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Juliana Daniel. I am a school counselor with the Ministry of Education, and I've been working with families and children for over 10 to 15 years. I enjoy tremendously what I do, especially the interaction with young people and families, and also ensuring that persons are able to live their full potential. So, yeah, that's me.
And last but not least, Gabriella.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here, first of all. But the last time we spoke, I would have been at childcare board as a house parent. However, now I'm with the One Family program as a family empowerment officer. So I'm still a social worker, but we work directly with families all across the board. We work with all the members of the household instead of just children like I had my experience with before.
Okay, and thank you both, and thank you, Mr. Olton, as well. We're going to use our first names because we're all family here, so that's quite okay with you, I'm sure. So let's just give our audience what objectives we hope to achieve by the end of this discussion. We hope to identify the reasons behind the lack of emotional support. It makes more sense for us to get to the root of a problem rather than just trying to manage what the fruit is for that particular problem. We want to explore the impacts of emotional neglect on individual family members, especially children. And we also want to take a look at that neglect on the family as a whole. And like I said before in the introduction, we want to look at effective strategies. And we also want to provide a forum by us being here discussing. We want to provide a forum where, by sharing our own experiences and not only things that might have happened to us, but things that we would have observed in our professional discourses, but what insights and best practices we can offer to those persons who are listening to us. So I've said enough. We are going to jump right into the questions, and we are going to start with Gabriella. What do you think are some of the common reasons that lead to a lack of emotional support in families? Some common reasons for this lack of emotional support.
Hi again. From my observations, I think that when people grow up, they get big and they start their families, people tend to parent from a base of lacks they had within their childhood. So coming from the previous generations, a lot of these lacks were financial, it could be materialistic lacks. So it's like a mindset of like, when I get my children, I know I can make sure I could provide this, I could provide that. So not necessarily a negative mindset, but because of society and how it is, a lot of emphasis is placed on providing those type of things as opposed to, emotional connection.
Mm-hmm. You're muted. You're muted,
My
Renee.
bad.
So sorry about that. And that's something that I was so mindful about. But Gabriella mentioned something just now where she was talking about you don't want the things that happen to you happen to your children, especially when it came to tangible things. So my question is now, how can these cultural or societal norms contribute to this issue that we are now seeing with neglect in these families? So just continue on a little bit more from what Gabriella was saying.
Well, one of the things I would say, as Gabrielle was saying, that when you think about Gabrielle talked about how the parent, from the perspective of being able to provide their children with what they did not have, I will flip that to say that sometimes they parent out of how they were parented. Um, and the challenge with that is that a lot of times, because persons are focusing on the physical, and sometimes culturally, we are not taught to express our emotions. We not even taught to name our emotions. Persons don't even know how to call their emotions. So when we speak to young persons, when we speak to adults, and Renee, you would ask somebody how they're doing, what's the response? What's
Fine.
the
I'm
response you
fine.
get?
I'm
I'm
fine.
fine or I'm good. Is that an emotion? Right?
Mm,
Yeah.
So persons don't even know how to name their emotions. Everything is I am good. So we have
Hi,
not
Ori.
been taught, and I know Tony is going to jump in here. I have been taught to just say I am good,
Yeah.
but most of the time they're really not good. A person might be frustrated, but they don't know how to express that. And I believe that culturally, that's something, because you speak to most of the young persons now, most of our adults, everyone would say they're good or they're fine. They have not named an emotion. And I know Tony's ready.
so I'm going to allow you right in here, Tony. What are your thoughts on this matter? How is culture?
So I'm
How
going
is
to say the
culture
same thing
impacting?
yeah. So I'm going to say the same things that Gabriella and Joanna mentioned, but I'm going to say it differently. The child is father to the man, and you can't give what you don't have.
What you don't have.
You can't give what you don't have. Too many of us, and I'm going to say us, too many of us have grown up in households and not experience love,
Mhm.
That is
not
quite true.
experience meaningful connection. I grew up in a house with a grandmother and a grandfather. My father left when I was 2. My mother left to make a better life for herself, left the 3 of us behind. I was 4, I'm the oldest. 4, 3, 18, more than 18 months. I'm going to go to my grave regretting that I never learned to play the piano, but grew up in a house with a piano,
Mm.
but couldn't touch it.
Okay, so you see, Tony, this isn't about emotional support or anything, but it's something critical that you just said, right? And it's something that we were talking before we came on about persons changing careers even at age 70 or thereabouts. And you just mentioned that you're going to go to your grave not being able to play the piano. So I don't want to say devil's advocate, but my question is, why are you not taking piano lessons presently?
But that's another story. I attempted at age 22, and Colin Jackson, who was a very good friend and a well-known pianist, organist,
Mhm.
he said to
Yes,
me,
father to Sean Jackson.
father to Sean Jackson, that's right. He said to me, Tony, you have a significant problem. He says, you have the head of a 22-year-old, but you have the ability of a 3-year-old. Until you can reconcile those two, you're going to be in trouble. And
Oh,
oh, yes.
all
But,
right.
but, but my point about my grandfather is this. I had zero emotional relationship with my grandfather. None. Absolutely none. None.
Mhm.
The
I
conversations
understand
I
that.
had with my grandfather, he was very into church. When he came home, and we had friends, so he would call me aside, and his question was, "Are you talking about Jesus?"
Mm.
My grandmother loved us. I know our grandmother loved us. She did the best that she could do for us, but we
Mhm.
never got a hug from our grandmother.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
never.
And the
It,
thing
you,
the thing we pay attention to would be not only things that are said, but how things are said.
yes,
And
Yeah.
yes.
the difference in your voice before when you introduce yourself and the difference in your tone
The
now
emotions.
speaking
Yeah.
about
Yes.
exactly. And this is exactly what we're talking
Yeah.
about here tonight, the whole
Mm,
emotional connection and how important it is.
it is.
One of the things that we say in medicine is that children are not little adults. Hence, there is a
Mhm,
specialty, a whole branch of medicine for children, pediatrics.
Pediatric.
So it's
Mhm.
not just little people, little adult
mhm,
medicine, it's a whole
Mhm.
specialty in itself. And therefore, what I want to discuss now would be how is this emotional disconnect affecting children as compared to how it would impact adults? Because the
mhm,
children are going to become adults. And therefore, if we want to right some of these societal wrongs, we're going to have
Mhm.
to learn to reach the children. And therefore, I'm thinking we can't reach the children the same way we reach the adults. So I leave it to you, the experts, to tell us
mhm.
the difference between the two.
There's no
Ren-
difference.
that's
There's no
right.
Really?
Beg
difference.
to
No.
differ. I beg to differ.
One of my mentors,
Mhm.
she makes this point. She says, when I'm talking to children, I'm thinking
The
about the adults that
child.
they're going to become.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And when I'm talking or dealing with adults, I'm
The
thinking about
children
the
that they
child
were.
that they used to be.
Mhm.
85% of how we present as adults is in place
Does.
by the time we are 7 years old.
Mhm.
So you could be 55, but still operating with the mindset, the understanding, the framework, the preferences, the attitudes of a 7-year-old,
Yeah.
even though you're 55.
Mhm. And the thing about that as
80, sorry,
well.
yes.
Sorry, go ahead, Tony. I'm sorry.
Yes. No, finish the point you're making. Mm,
No, I was saying, and the thing about that is that a lot of times when we see situations and we see emotional disconnect, it is because those adults are operating on feelings that they would have had, or the lack of
yes.
feelings and support that they would have had when they were children.
Mhm,
So a lot of the things that are played out now, we know now from research when we see these adults, it's because of situations that would have
mhm.
happened in their childhood. So when we
Yeah.
speak
Uh,
about ACEs, which is adverse childhood experiences, we now know that when I see an adult presenting and these behaviors might be abnormal, they might be withdrawal, lack of being able to demonstrate empathy, we now know that we have to go back into the childhood and look at, okay, what happened there, right? So the same way when we are looking at children now, we want to more put preventative methods in place in terms of being able to reach them. So how do we help the adults to see that the behaviors that they're demonstrating is because something has happened to them in their childhood that would have caused these behaviors to be presented now? And at the same time, how do we put things in place to protect the children from going down that same lane?
Mhm.
Yeah, we
In
definitely
fact,
want to do that if we want to improve the outcomes
mhm,
for
mhm.
families. I want to find out from you, what are some of the psychological effects in your careers? What are some of the psychological issues that you are seeing, which you, in your expertise, think is stemming from a child who has not had emotional support?
Look
Narcissism.
around,
There's a
look around in our
Narcissism.
environment.
Yeah, there's a wide
Right.
range of things. I
Yeah.
want to apologize
Yeah.
for my camera being off. I'm not sure what's
Yeah.
happening, having a bit of technical difficulties. But for sure, one of the major things that we see is poor self-image. A lot of
Yes.
children don't know how to speak
Mhm.
up, how to speak for themselves, how to even regulate their emotions, or even um understand what emotion they're feeling, because children should be seen and not heard. Children aren't given that space to even
Mhm.
understand or even be treated like human beings. We say they aren't adults, yes, but they're still human. They don't get the
Mhm.
question, how you doing, how did this make you feel. Children rarely even get apologies, so a lot of that stifles their self-image. And a lot of what you guys were saying is true, because that in within the child grows up to then be an adult, and then does not know how to regulate these emotions within society. They have disorganized attachment styles.
That's
Sometimes you
right.
might see some children either like overly shy and don't know how to connect or speak, or overly attached to other people that show them kindness. So growing up
Mhm.
into an adult, no, that could really affect your relationships, your
Mhm.
self-worth, the things you accept, and it can make you a huge people pleaser as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we come
especially
from
Same
a
the
things.
people pleasing.
society,
Mhm.
sorry, we come from a society that believe that children should be seen and not heard, should be heard and not seen, sorry. So
I've seen and not heard.
should be
Seen and not
seen and not
heard.
heard. I'm
Seen and
correct.
not
Seen and
heard.
Yes.
not
Yes.
heard.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I see you, you're a child, you take your place, understanding that
Mhm.
that child has an opinion. They have feelings, they have thoughts, and we need to be able to let them know. We have to be able to teach them how to express themselves, right? Which is quite important. When I think one of the things that was a big issue for me was always watching our sport and the lack of the ability of our children to be able to speak
Yes.
confidently, and then looking at my nephews and my nieces overseas at 4, and they can carry on a conversation with you that, that's amazing. But here is that we have our children, because a lot of times we do not allow them to express their feelings. And even if we think it is a challenge or something is wrong, how do we say to them that, okay, maybe you could restructure it in this way, or do you think that you could say that a different way instead of saying, I'm real tired of you, I can't take it.
Mhm.
What
Mhm.
you are saying to me um, made me feel sad, or how
Mhm.
you treated me hurt my feelings. Our children are not expressive in that ways, and hence our adults are not expressive in that ways. And Renee, you asked, what are some of the things we are seeing? When we look around in our society, we are seeing angry people.
Angry. Yep.
But
Yes.
a lot of times, when you start to talk to these individuals, you start to see, wait a minute, as Tony said earlier, some of these adults that we have now have never been hugged by their fathers, have never been hugged by their mothers, have never
Correct.
been told, I love you. I am so proud of you. We tend not to use those words. We might feel it, we a lot of times when you speak to parents, and from my experience working with children and their parents, the parents would say, they should know that I love them.
Yes.
They have the idea that I pay the bills, I provide school stuff for them, they eat, they can go wherever they want to go. So they should know that I love them. And just sitting down, it is amazing to me when I put my arms around a child and say, I'm so proud of you. The difference it makes to that child. I remember a couple of weeks ago, I said to a child, I said, I love you. And that child said, no, ma'am, nobody love me.
Oh dear.
Whoa.
And I said, no, I love you. And because I love you, this is why I might say things to you that you might think, okay, ma'am does not allow me to do the things that I want to do. It's because I love you. It's because I see the potential in you. Our children are not hearing those things, right? So when that child, imagine that child grows up now into an adult, couple of years, and nobody says to that child, I love you. I am proud of you. I see potential in you. You know, that child goes away thinking, nobody cared about me. I am worth nothing, as Gabrielle is saying. When they look at the value of their life, they don't see much value. When we speak to some of the young boys that we're seeing doing all the different things that we're annoyed in our society about, they don't feel a sense of love or belonging. And when people don't feel like they belong, my supervisor will always say that a child, when the child don't feel the love from the village, the child will burn the village to feel the warmth from the fire.
Mm.
Oh, I love that. I
You
love
know?
that. That is profound.
So we have to be able to, for us as adults, learn how to identify our emotions, learn how to share what we're feeling, learn how to name our emotions. If I'm frustrated, I'm not good, I'm frustrated, you know?
Sure.
Mm.
So Tony, let me ask
Yes.
you, I family dynamics, the relationship between the persons in the families. When Juliana and Gabrielle were talking just now, they had mentioned about the children who don't feel loved. And then I see these children going on and getting involved in relationships which don't serve them well. And I
Looking
think
for
that this
love. Looking for
exactly.
love.
So how do you think this lack of emotional security affects family dynamics?
As we're saying, if you've never experienced true love, if you've never experienced unconditional love, if you only experience provision when you get good grades, or you do something that makes me feel proud,
Mhm.
if that's the only time you receive something that is positive and an exchange that is positive, then and you don't know when someone goes out of their way sacrificially and not necessarily have to talk about it or mention it, but they just do what they need to do. If you've never had an experience, it becomes extremely difficult to manifest it. All behavior is learned behavior.
Mhm.
All behavior is learned behavior. Yeah? And all behavior has an emotional need. So when I'm feeling shame, when I'm feeling guilt, when I'm feeling disconnection, when I'm feeling anger and all those emotions, there's a word, I remember the author now, but he says that, and he lists about 8 or so of these emotions that we describe as not negative but unpleasant. He says that the only thing, Joanne, just not talking about burning the village, the only thing that emanates from you is destructive.
Yeah.
To self and to
Others.
others.
Tony,
But
Hey,
here's
that's
what he
so
also
profound.
says. But here's what he also says. That change does not take place until you get to a place where you take responsibility. We have the courage to say, I'm responsible for the rest of my life. When we are engaging parents, we tell parents the greatest work you can do for your children is the work you've done on yourself. The greatest work you can do for your children is the work you're doing on yourself, especially at very young ages, because most learning takes place at the unconscious level.
Mhm.
And so they're watching and they're learning. They're learning how you manage conflict. They're
Mhm.
learning how you
Yes.
manage, they're learning how you manage disappointment.
How you
Yes?
manage your
They're learning how,
finances.
how and your frustrations.
Yep.
yes.
They're just observing.
Yeah,
And so when they become adults, all they're going to do is to manifest all that they have learned. As
exactly.
they know, as they know sick as adults, they meet their emotional needs.
What are your thoughts, Gabriella?
Right. I really agree with everything that Tony just said. And to piggyback off of that, they also agree. I mean, they also know and learn how to shut down in relationships, how to shut down when conflict arises, because that's how I see mommy or daddy operating. And I think he mentioned something really important, and it highlights why so many relationships are then transactional, because these transactional relationships start at home. I only smiling at you because you do good in school. I only, talking to daddy because daddy did what I said. It really sets the tone for faulty relationships going forward, and not understanding that we need to pour into one another and ourselves. And you're just expecting, trying to say, okay, if I don't do this, I'm not worthy of love. If this body don't do this for me, if this person does not do this, they are not worthy of love.
Yeah, that is quite
There's
true.
something on television, like we say more on YouTube. I'm not quite sure if any of you have seen it. Loyalty tests. Does anybody seeing these loyalty tests? Well, not so new to me. A new fad that have come on. There are about 5 or 6 of them. Juliana, you look puzzled.
Yeah, I haven't heard of
Yes.
them. A bit
You
more
haven't.
strong.
Go
No.
look. So what they do, so you and I in a relationship, but I don't trust you. I can go to this outfit, and they will set up this elaborate scheme. I will bring you to the situation, and for some reason I need to leave. Oftentimes in 15, 20 minutes, there's someone there who's now enticing you because they have a Jaguar and they live in this big house and they have all of this money, yeah, and they show it off. 90%, if not 95% of the persons fail.
Oh, okay. That's almost something like fishing.
No, that's different. That's different. That's different. This one, I am testing your loyalty. And
Okay, so
most
by
people
showing you
fail.
these different things to see if you would go with someone else because of
And
these
most
Has
people,
things.
more.
yes.
Okay.
That's
And
because it's no longer
99,
about connection at that
it's
point.
no longer a connection,
It's no
right?
longer. It probably never
It's
was.
Well, it never was.
It
It
probably
never was
never
about
was.
Okay,
connection.
took the words
the
right out
the
of my mouth. What are we
the
building
dating
our
the,
relationships on
the
then
dating
becomes a
sites.
Exactly.
fundamental question.
Yes. It's why so many people are harmed by these dating sites. Because
Yeah.
there are all kind of prowlers on the dating sites looking for victims. People are
Yeah.
looking for love. People are looking for connection. It's
Yes.
desperate. And then you
Yes.
open yourself up to the individual. You don't know the man in the moon. But this need for love and connection and warmth
Mhm.
and belonging is what
Belonging.
drives you to the dating sites.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have a major crisis, but we're not effectively treating to it. We're patching, we're trying to do different
Right.
things.
Which is one of the things that I had said initially, where we are trying to put out fires, as it were, instead of looking for the person or persons with the matches setting the fires. We're
Yes.
trying to get rid of the fruit, but we're not addressing the issues which are occurring
Addressing the
at
roots.
the
The
root,
roots.
right?
Yeah.
Those are
Yeah.
the issues to which we need to speak in order to solve many of the relationship problems that we are seeing within our society.
Yes.
So this segues very nicely into this almost fad-like topic, emotional intelligence. Everybody is
Mark's
talking
not
about.
bad.
No, no,
It's
no,
not a
no, no,
fad.
no. No, the reason why I transgressed and said fad because I know that it's something that has been extensively studied scientifically and that there is worth and value in it. But like most things, persons are using it
I
incorrectly, I would
agree.
Yes.
say.
It just sounds
Yes.
fancy to say I'm emotionally
Correct.
intelligent, but they aren't doing the work to actually
The-
Yes.
be emotionally
Don't understand what's involved.
and right
Yep.
along with this issue of emotional intelligence is another concept that I've been seeing recently called is it self work? It's called self
Shadow
work.
work. Shadow work.
Right, shadow
Shadow.
work. So
Same
let's
thing.
talk
Same
a little.
thing.
So let's talk a little bit about this for our listeners. We want to understand what emotional intelligence is, so that people can actually put it in perspective and use it correctly. Because there is value in being emotionally intelligent within relationships, and it's not only familial relationships, but it is every
And
single
mhm,
relationship.
mhm.
So I am going to let each of you speak a bit on this issue of emotional intelligence, and then we'll go over to how we can help those persons who have joined us this evening.
Okay. So let's go back to my first comment. The child is father to the man. And that 85% of how we show up as adults, at whatever age, 35, 45, 55, 65, 85% of that is in place by age 7. So to be emotionally intelligent starts with one's own self-awareness. I have to become deeply, deeply self-aware. I have to spend more time with introspection. I have to spend more time observing myself. I have to spend more time understanding myself.
So, sorry, Tony,
Um,
sorry to stop you, but let me ask you a question right there.
hmm.
So, this is a yes and no question. I'll let you get back to your explanations. Can emotional intelligence or can self-awareness be taught?
Yes, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
what we're doing. And
Go
it can be
ahead.
taught, and it can be taught in one of two ways. Remember, I said to you just now that we tell parents the greatest work you can do for your children is
Is
the
to
work
work
you've
on
done on
yourself.
yourself.
Mm-hmm.
When you're working on yourself, that emotional intelligence learning, what we call no social emotional learning, is being learned what we call implicitly.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not sitting the child down and saying one and one is two, two and two are
Yes.
four.
This
But
is
by how you
emotional
manifest, how you
intelligence.
show up, they're
Yeah.
learning to be emotionally intelligent. That's implicit learning. Explicit learning is when you sit in a class or you take a course and you're taught the nuts and bolts, the how-tos and the whys about emotional intelligence. We have found that more effective than the explicit is the implicit learning.
Mhm.
Is the
Yes.
implicit learning. Yeah.
I think that's
And
true
how
for most things.
well, the most powerful example is when your 4-year-old comes home. You've raised this child for the last 4 years. And after a term in school, the child comes home and tells the teacher say,
Mm.
and what the teachers do? Teachers flog. So they always walk with a stick. And they want to flog her. Sit, stand, go in the corner. Nobody told them that's how you do it, just by observation. So
Mhm.
self-understanding is critical. Self-understanding is at the base of becoming emotionally intelligent. And what we teach is that there are essentially two skills within that self-knowing. One, the ability to name your emotions. So I tell you that I'm angry, but is it that I'm angry or is it that I'm frustrated?
Correct.
Because everything is anger, but everything is not anger. I may be frustrated. I may be feeling lonely.
And maybe tired.
I may be tired.
Mhm.
Yes. So what am I really feeling? So we ask, what are you feeling? And what
So
else
one
are
is
you
naming
feeling?
emotions. What's the other?
The other is recognizing your patterns.
Mhm.
Because we're creatures of habit. Remember, I'm repeating myself now. 85% of how we show up is in place as adults, is in place by the time we're 7.
Awesome.
So a lot of our functioning comes out of our subconscious mind. We're not conscious in our thinking. Most of our thinking, feeling, and behaving, speaking
Behaviors. Yeah.
is just
From
automatic,
patterns.
out of
Yes, it
from
is.
patterns. So you have to recognize your patterns. What of my patterns are allowing me to be effective with myself? What of my patterns are allowing me to be effective with others? So I have to have that understanding.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
deep. That's very deep.
that it is, and it's at the base, it's at the foundation of becoming emotionally intelligent. Working on yourself. I tell people, if you're emotionally intelligent, you spend less time looking out,
More
And more
and you
time.
time
spend more
looking in.
time looking in.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, what are your thoughts? Sorry, we want to see what Juliana
sure.
thinks about this issue of emotional intelligence. And if you
Tony,
want to
Tony,
put it in the context of your profession as a social worker.
Tony spoke about the whole aspect of implicit and explicit. And we will talk about modeling behaviors and same thing. So it's one thing to say to somebody something over and over. It's a difference when you see them do it and you see the results of it. So many times we will say to persons, or when we're speaking to children, we always tell them, do not do this.
Mm,
Do not do this. How many times do we say to them, but this is what you do? So we're always saying do not.
Mhm.
And if you think about children, and as Tony was talking about, at that young age where a lot of things are already ingrained, what do we hear our children saying a lot? No. People
mm,
will say that they're very selfish. Everything is mine, you know? But when we start to look at how are we modeling behaviors, when these children are looking at us, what are they seeing? How are they seeing us being able to cope? How do they see us being able to recognize or even name our own emotions? And I totally agree with what Tony is saying. And as I said earlier, we have a problem. We do not know how to name our emotions. We do not know how to identify how we are feeling. If I cannot identify how I'm feeling, if I do not know who Juliana is, when I get into a relationship, there's going to be a problem, right? Because I don't know who I am. So I'm either going to take on the personality of that person and I'm going to do whatever they say, or I am going to become very rebellious and figure this person wants to control me. When I have an understanding of, okay, my particular triggers, this thing makes me uncomfortable. And why does it make me uncomfortable? Because I was raised in a home where persons were always loud. So when you are loud, I feel like you're being aggressive. You might not be aggressive. I have a very loud voice. My husband is the total opposite of me, right? So then I have to remember, okay, you know what? My environment has shaped who I am, right? And a lot of times we don't take note again of the families of origin. That's a whole different topic altogether, but that is so important. And so when then we get into relationships, we see all these different things coming out. When you are emotionally intelligent, you are able to say, okay, this is the reason, this is what is causing this. Um, Let me see how I can deal with this. So I'm not looking now at my husband or my partner and saying he needs to change. I'm not saying he has a problem. I'm looking at Juliana and I'm saying, okay, the reason I know that I'm behaving this way is because I experienced this 2 or 3 years ago. I went through this and this looks very familiar to what happened to me back then. It might not even be the same thing, but because it feels familiar, I am going to put up a resistance. Yeah?
Yeah, that's what Tony was saying, patterns,
Yes.
trigger points and patterns. And of course, I agree with what he said, which is the same thing you said as well, where
Mm-hmm.
in order for us to be emotionally intelligent, we need to spend more time looking in
Yes.
than looking outwards. So we want to see what Gabrielle thinks about this whole issue of emotional intelligence.
I think my colleagues basically said, if not all, the majority, but what I think is really important, and it kind of goes hand in hand with being able to identify your emotions, is understanding that emotions are okay. The negative
Yes.
emotions are okay to feel. If you feel angry, it's okay. If you're sad, it's okay. I always tell people I see emotions as indicators and not guides. So the next step then will be what Tony and
Mm-hmm.
Juliana was saying. When you then understand how you feel, you know how to then move. You don't act out in that behavior.
And
That
Renee, an
emotion,
example,
sorry.
sorry, an example I wanted to give was most of the time when I interact with a child, I can tell you how their environment is.
Mhm.
Yeah. When I see their interactions, when I hear their language, when I spend time with them,
Yeah,
I
you can
am
tell.
never shocked when I interact with the parents.
Yes.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about that for me is that the parents are surprised. The parents will say, um, this behavior, I don't understand where this behavior is coming
Is
from.
coming from.
And they don't understand the connection. They don't understand that this is something that has been learned, from
Yeah.
the environment that the child is in. So, and it's
Mm.
only after discussion that sometimes you would hear, oh, yeah, but this is how I respond that way, but I never thought that they would do that. So
Yes,
they
so
don't
quick.
understand.
The whole
They
a
don't.
quick story that illustrates what you were saying. Many of my close friends are teachers, and when we
Mhm.
had the issue with homeschooling, having to homeschool because of COVID and so on, uh, one of the children in school, previously they were cursing terribly, and the teachers couldn't understand. But when they had to be at home and the mics were on and the parents were in the
In the
background,
background,
they
yes.
heard the environment in which the children would have been living, and then they understood this is why the
Yeah.
children are speaking this way and behaving this way. You look as though you
Mm.
wanted to jump in and say something, Tony.
Yeah, there's a metaphor that we use to help people understand emotions. And part of self-awareness is understanding emotions. If you drive the gas meter, the meter tells you how you're doing in terms of gas. What's the important? What is its importance? It
Yeah, you
lets
need
you
to know.
know. It
How
lets
far
you
you can
know what
go.
is even though you're driving the vehicle and it's on the move, it lets you know what is happening with the vehicle in the context of your gasoline or your diesel or whatever.
Mhm.
When the needle gets down to E, gets into the red, you're still driving, but you're thinking, how much further can I go with this?
How
Then
far
the
can I
light
go?
comes on. Then the light comes on, you switch and you move. Ah! So if I want to go from here 100 yards away, I'll take the chance and do the 100 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Christchurch. If I want to leave Christchurch and get to St. Lucie and my light comes on, ah.
Should
But
not.
but notice what I'm doing. I'm pausing, I'm thinking.
Reasoning.
So what does that have to do with emotions? Your emotions operate on exactly and precisely the same basis. Your emotion, whatever the emotion, is a message to you. An emotion is giving you information about yourself. If you understand yourself, if you understand the emotion, if you understand the message of the emotion, if you understand the purpose of the emotion, you can then make what we call strategic or better decisions.
Yeah.
I can decide if I take the chance and travel 100 yards, or I'd be really foolish with my needle E trying to get to St.
Trying to
Lucie.
get to St. Lucie from Christchurch.
So the problem is not the emotion. The problem is not the needle or
Mhm.
the meter. That's not the problem. The problem now becomes my decision making.
That
Yeah.
is just deep and brilliant. If you are now joining us, it's approximately 20 minutes to the hour of 8. We are coming to you from beautiful Barbados and across the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It's the same time. This is Family Fest Barbados. And our topic tonight, our panel discussion, we are talking about the critical need for emotional support in family life. It is the aim of families to bring health, hope, healing, and happiness to families. And that's the purpose of this discussion. We have Mr. Tony Olton. We also have Mrs. Juliana Daniel, and we have Gabriella. And we are having this discussion about the importance of understanding emotions and the impact that emotions play in the family life. So, in the previous part of our discussion, sorry if you missed it. If you did, you can always go back and watch it afterward. But in the previous part of our discussion, we were talking about some of the things that we see as a result of emotions, whether good or bad. What we want to discuss now would be how can we help? What information can we give to persons who might be watching or listening to help them to become better emotionally so that down the road, generations to come, we have better families? I firmly believe that each successive generation should be better than the previous generation. Because if you see things in your family that you don't like, then you don't want to carry that into the next generation, as it were. So, our panelists are now going to discuss some of the tips, some of the experiences that they might have had and what they would have learned. So, what they're able to share so that we can have better families emotionally. So, take it away, guys. Let's start sharing that wealth of information that we have so that we can help those who are listening.
So we spent some time talking about self-awareness. Self-awareness has to be coupled now with self-management. I said just now, if you understand the metaphor of the meter, the indicator on the gas meter, that's just giving me information. Similarly, my emotions that give me information. It is what I do with the information. And that's where the self-management comes in. So I have to understand the nature of emotions. I have to understand the messages and the purposes of emotion. And then when I have an emotion, here's an important learning. And when I say this, people go, aha, the chemical that is released that we call an emotion, GABA, noradrenaline, oxytocin, cortisol, the range of them. The chemical that is released, that's what emotions are, that we call an emotion. The original emotional response or chemical response to the whatever only has a life of 3 to 6 seconds. It is that twitch in the gut. It is that sharp pain you get in your neck or your shoulders. Only has a life of 3 to 6 seconds. What does that mean? It means that the counsel of your grandparent was wise beyond your imagination. Your grandparent taught you when stuff happens, count to 10. That grandparent gave you 4 more seconds than you actually need for self-regulation. So yes, you're going to be angry. Yes, you're going to be frustrated. You're going to be happy. You're going to be excited. Whatever the emotion. Question is, what are your choices in how you're going to respond to the stimulus, to the thing that has happened? That's on you.
Yeah, but it's written in the Bible. The Bible has so many answers for so many of the different things. Be angry
And
and
say
sin
no.
not.
not.
So
Yes.
it's understood that as human beings, we have these emotions.
We are going to have
And it wasn't
emotions.
just anger, but like we're learning this evening, naming the emotions. So be frustrated, be upset, but it's how you regulate and how you
Yes.
manage that
Yes.
particular emotion.
Yes.
That's the most important thing, not necessarily having that emotion. What are
No.
your thoughts,
And
Juliana?
Go ahead, Tony. I'll come in when
I
you're
was just
finished.
going to say, it is about transitioning from being reactive
Yes,
to being responsive.
responsive.
If I'm reactive, the emotion is driving the behavior.
Yes.
If I'm responsive, I'm giving myself time to think, not only of my choices, but which of my choices, which is my
Perfect.
options, is the best one to get me the outcome that I said that I want. And so consequential thinking is the next layer you need to build. That when I'm going to respond to life and its circumstances, to people and the things that they do and they say and blah, 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 do I think about the outcome before I act? And only choose responses that are in concert with the outcomes that they said that I want.
So Juliana, you deal with children, and these children have what we call juvenile thinking, where they think about now. They don't think about what is going to happen down the road. So we're saying when you feel this particular emotion, we take the time to think about it and think about the consequences. But for children, is this really something practical that we can ask them to do?
I think our reality now is not just children. I think our adults have juvenile thinking as well.
Oh dear.
Because we are very reactive. And as Tony said, it's something that has to be taught. Um, so a child might be misbehaving. If a child is in a heat of rage, their emotions, they have been hijacked. So the logical thinking that we want them to have at that point in time is not taking place. So the work kind of has to come before that. So most of the time, you have to be able to bring that child to a regulated state and then have the conversation after, right? It cannot be that I am trying to have a conversation with you when you're emotionally hijacked. I don't know about anyone on the call, but when you get annoyed, when you are, and we're talking about anger, but sometimes sadness, you're so overwhelmed with the sadness at that point in time. I don't want to hear all of your theories and all of this thing. I don't want to hear that. Sometimes I don't want to hear anything at all. Sometimes just sitting with me is enough. Just letting me know that you are present, you are here with me. And a lot of times, um, persons say the wrong thing when people are sad and hurting, because
Very
we
true.
give a time limit for it. I can't put a time limit on your grief. I can't say, oh, boy, no, you should have gotten over
Yeah,
that,
should have gotten over that, correct.
right? So for me, the work has to be done before a lot of things that I will work with students and even their parents in helping them to understand, okay, you are going to get angry at some point in time. You are going to be disappointed at some point in time. How are some of the ways that you think you can respond? What are some of the outcomes that you want? Because let's look at it. If I get angry and I am in a situation where I can walk away, what are your options, as Tony was saying? I can choose a couple things. I can stand and fight because you called me a name. I can curse. I can have a whole blowout, or I can simply say, you know what? That's
Not
not
right.
who I am. And I can walk away. The
Mhm.
challenge that we're having, and Tony said it from the beginning, self-awareness. Who am I? So because a lot of persons do not understand who they are, and they're more looking at what the crowd is saying, the response from the crowd. I don't want people to think that I am weak. And when I interact with our children, that's what I'm hearing. When I have the conversation with them after they have fought or after they have been involved in something, ma'am, I cannot let them feel that I was soft. I said,
Mm-hmm.
okay, are you enjoying your consequences? Are you
Mm.
enjoying the outcome? No, ma'am, this is not what I would have wanted. Is there something that you could have done differently? Because it's going to happen again. Somebody will say something that you do not like. Somebody will
Mhm.
do something that you do not like again. So what I try to do is to help them to, in their way, make that right choice, help them to see the consequences, help them to explore the options that they have, and help them to come to the place, okay, you know what? This is the best option for me. It's not about what my classmates are saying. It's not about what the crowd is saying, because at the end of the day, the crowd is not the ones who are suffering the consequences,
I
right?
always say,
And
sorry, Juliana, but I always
that's
say
okay.
when young people come into my office, and this for me is a very serious, it's a moot point, and especially if they're young people who are given trouble, and I say to them, let me ask you a question. When you look at the front page of the newspaper, how many
Mm-hmm.
people are in that picture? And it's two: the arresting officer and the one who has
Mm-hmm.
been charged or caught. Where are the friends? Where are those persons that you are trying your best not to look soft in front of? Right? And if you
Mm-hmm.
see the light bulb that would go on in a few heads, some of them are just not bothered, but some of them get the idea.
And I think what Tony, along with us and others, are trying to do is help them not to have to
Mm.
get the light bulb at that moment,
Yeah.
but get the light
Get
bulb
it
way
long before.
before.
Long
Long
Yes.
before.
before.
Yes, so helping them to become self-aware,
Mm.
helping them to know who they are, helping them to understand. Yes, we are saying that you might come out of an environment where there is conflict. Your household might be toxic, but you can make certain decisions still.
Yeah.
I came out of a home that had conflict. I can say when I look back, I see a lot of my behaviors that would have represented what I came out of. But as Tony said,
Mm.
something that's very important, I had to make a decision that I'm going to make a change. Yeah.
Mm.
And that's what we want young persons to understand. You are in control. You can make that difference, right? You can choose. You have a choice. You can choose whether you are going to be aggressive. I mean, if you don't understand your triggers, if you don't understand the things that will provoke you, then it's harder to make that decision to walk away. But if you know that you are an alcoholic, you are not going to, or you should not, let's say, you should not go into a bar
Rum.
and sit down with everyone who's drinking.
Correct.
Yeah. If you know I am now recovering, I'm trying to walk this walk, the temptation is going to be there. I know some persons might say, oh, but I'm testing to see if I'm strong or how strong I have gotten. I don't think that that's the way that you should do it, right?
Yeah.
I think you identify your triggers because there is someone who's going to offer you that drink. There's
Yes.
someone who's going to forget, oh, shoot, I forgot that you are recovering, but you are the person who has to make the choice.
Yeah, that's true. Tony, any more insights to share with our listeners on how to get this whole thing about emotional intelligence done
So
and
you want to play along with me? I want you to be my 10-year-old who's really, really upset.
all right, you ready?
Yes,
What have I done? What have I done? But
you
you
tell
know
me.
that
You're just upset. You're
okay,
just upset.
but I was playing with that part. I was playing with that toy, and I can't believe that he come and take it up. That is not. But and I tell him put it down, and he would
Mm.
not put it down. And the more I tell him to put it down, he would not put it down. And so
And
I went and I hit him.
okay, what were you feeling in that moment? What was going on with you in that moment?
Yeah, I was rather upset. I felt
Uh, and by
I
upset you
felt
mean what? And by upset you
that
mean what?
somebody was behaving in a way that I would not
No,
have
upset.
behaved.
Stay with the emotion. By upset was what?
Like I was
You were
angry,
angry. You were frustrated. You were angry.
angry, very angry.
What else were you feeling? You see
Hatred.
what's hap start step You see what's happening now? I am
Think,
forcing you to go inside of yourself.
think. Mhm.
I'm not giving you any advice.
Listen to me, Tony. Listen to me. What I was going to say as we began to wrap up, and I was doing it all along during this conversation, from the time Juliana mentioned it about naming your emotions, because we intrinsically as Barbadians say, yeah, all right. And I started thinking,
Mhm.
I name my emotions. I started thinking as we were going along, and that was
Mhm.
very effective because I had to go inside and try to think.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. That is something that I am going to take. And I hope that our listeners and viewers
Mhm.
understood what just
Mhm.
happened. So on the surface, I just said I'm angry. And that's the first thing that just came out. But I had to search to come up with what I was truly feeling. And that was an
Yes.
artificial scenario. So can you imagine? And it was
Mm.
difficult. It was difficult. So can you imagine in a real life situation? So this just goes to show us as we are wrapping up that we really
Mm.
have to get on top of implicitly and explicitly teaching our children
Good.
all about being emotionally intelligent, all about
Mhm.
managing these hormones and chemicals that manifest different behaviors. So as we wind down, I want each of you to think about something that you want to leave with our panel. And whilst you are thinking, Tony, I want to pose just one quick question to Juliana about the
Mm.
education. And maybe you can comment too, Tony, educational reform. Do you think that at the primary school level, we need to have or should have multiple guidance counselors or social workers for those schools? I know we need more in secondary schools. That
Mhm.
is known. It is known. I know the social workers. They're. What about primary school and
So
nursery school?
at present, we do have social workers and counselors
Mhm,
in our primary schools. We don't have enough, but we
mhm.
do
And
have,
and we will never have enough.
and you will never know.
Wow.
Yes.
But we do have counselors in our primary schools, and we
They're
do
on the
have social
plants. They're
workers.
they're on the plants or they're attached to the schools.
They're attached to schools. So one social worker will have about five or more schools. As you can imagine, as Tony said, you will never have enough.
You will never have enough. Yes.
Um, but we do believe that there should be more social workers starting that early intervention and preventative methods,
Mhm.
Mm.
teaching those things, working with parents, being able to identify early situations and being able to put things in place to help those children and parents to be able to cope. So, yes, I totally agree that we need more social workers and more counselors within our primary schools. And as you dare say, within our nurseries as well, to be able, to help shape that child as they're growing and help them because the reality of it, and you said for secondary schools, the reality of it is that it's difficult for a teacher to be able to have to teach the curriculum and still be able to do certain things and the whole classroom management
Yes.
and the interaction, you know. So there is a need for a support team, I would say, not just a social worker or a counselor, but I believe that there is a need for a support team within our schools. And this is both our secondary and our primary schools. So yes.
And
Okay,
that is
and
why I've been focusing and pushing that we have to invest more of our time or resources with parents.
Yeah, Tony.
yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because
On
50% of what we show up as adults is a place by the time we are two. So
yeah,
long before they get to school and
we
teachers, 50% of
yeah,
their personality, their view of themselves, their view of the world is already in place. So if parents
yeah,
aren't getting it right, we
Yeah,
we
our
we are
children.
sending upstream.
Yes.
yes,
Children
yes,
are already going to be challenged.
All
yeah.
So
right.
that
So
We
parents are
we're
doing it
setting them at a
significantly.
disadvantage. We're sending
yeah.
Yes,
them.
yes, desperately. Yeah,
And
definitely.
as he said, he's so right. The school counselors within the Ministry of Education, we do a program called Project Reach, and we work with students. We work with students within the schools, but we also work with students during the summer holiday, and we're doing a camp. But one of the things that we really, really focus on is that interaction with the parents. So we're also doing this year, we're doing a workshop for the parents. And we're looking at healing roots of trauma, helping
I
them
see the
to,
roots.
the roots, it's all about the roots, helping them to make the
Yes.
connections about what happened and how they're parenting, you know, the different connections they might be seeing a particular behavior in their child and not understanding how they're contributing to it. So here is we
Mhm.
want to work with the children, but one of the things that we know that is critical in any program that we're looking to do that is going to be effective. And this is whether persons are doing community-based programming. This is whether, you know, the governments are setting out programming. We have to make that connection between the parents and the children, even with the schools. I normally say to my parents when I'm working with them, I hardly want to work with a child unless I can work with the parents because I have limited time with that child. If I can do the joint work, bridge the school and the home, then we're more effective. So you find you get better success when you're able to work with the parents and with the children because everything is being reinforced.
Okay, and what I want to say is that I don't think an hour is enough time for us to discuss these critical issues for the family. I want to say thank you to our panelists, Mr. Tony Olton, always, always a wealth of emotion,
Knowledge,
information.
emotion as well.
Emotion
Yes.
too, a wealth of information that's so valuable for what we're seeing now as a society. And also you, Mrs. Juliana Daniel, want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. And also to Gabriella Baval, we want to thank her for lending to our discussion tonight. And just 3 takeaway points from each of our panelists. The greatest work you do for your children is to work on yourself. And emotions are indicators, not guides. And lastly, we have to learn how to name our emotions. So we want you to join us this coming Sunday, July the 20th at 7 p.m. And our topic then is going to be bridging the gap, overcoming emotional generational differences for stronger family ties. And the panelists for that discussion are going to be Reverend Dr. Adrian Smith, Jakeem Seeley, and Suzanne King. So that's going to be at 5:30 p.m., not 7 like we've been able to spend the night together here, but 5:30 on Sunday. So same place, 5:30, bridging the gap, overcoming generational differences for stronger family ties. So this has been Family Fest 2025. Do have a wonderful evening.
We're Family Fest, giving our best, empowering families to be the pillars of society. Family Fest, bringing healing and rest to hurting families, bringing help, hope, healing, happiness. With God on our side, we're marching strong.